I'm Julianne Bond, and this is Conversations about Conservation. My guests today are Mike Gentry of the Tualatin Valley chapter of Trout Unlimited and Joel Lafollete of Royal Treatment Fly Fishing in Westland. We'll be talking today about their efforts to protect the Oregon coastal Coho salmon, an initiative called Christmas for Coho. So, Joel, Mike, welcome and thank you for joining me today and for your time talking about your important work. I'm kind of curious. I think a good place to start is how did Christmas for Coho get started?
Well, I can jump in there. So maybe 12 or so years ago, the Tualatin Valley chapter of Trout Unlimited actually extended to the northwest coast, Astoria, and a little bit south of there. We have and had a member there. His name is Doug Ray, and he is a riparian restoration expert, I guess, for want of a better term. That was his profession. And on his own, he had been working on the Nicanicum River there on the coast to do some rehabilitation for a particular Coho river called the Nicanicum. He'd already started that project. One day we were talking about what we might do to help. And he said, well, you know, if you could collect a bunch of Christmas trees and bring them out here, we could create an area on the river where those trees could be placed, and that would provide great habitat for young coho. So that's what we did. We started hauling trees to that area and placing them in the Nicanicum, I would say, for 4 or 5 years or so. And at that point, we are, after all, a Portland metropolitan-based chapter. That's where most of our members are. So from that time on, we have shifted our focus to the Clackamas watershed. But that's how it came into being. Wow.
And when was that? When did that start?
Well, I'm only guessing because my memory is only so good and my calendars only go so back. I'd say 12 or 13 years ago.
Wow. Wow. Okay.
I'd say right around 12 years ago.
There you go.
And Joel, how did you come to be involved in this?
Well, Mike approached me about being a collection station for the first year, so we basically put the word out through our newsletter and set up a collection station on the corner here by the shop, and it just made a nice central location for people to swing by and drop off their Christmas trees after Christmas. And I think my main focus was just getting the word out to my community about what was going on and why it was happening. And I think from the very beginning, it was pretty successful. I think we probably got more trees than we anticipated.
Wow. And are you seeing, in the time that you've both been doing this, are you seeing a lot of growth in people getting involved and bringing their trees and wanting to volunteer?
Well, I'd say we are definitely seeing more people wanting to recycle their trees. And then we get, the shop starts getting phone calls, the week after Christmas says, when are we going to be dropping off our trees again this year? Even if they're not fly anglers, they've gotten the habit of using us as a good way to dispose of the Christmas trees.
Mike, did you have anything you wanted to add about that, or do you feel like that kind of covers that part of it, let's say?
I think there is kind of a sensing, a looming sense of concern in the back of my mind that success can sometimes be too successful. I'm just focusing on our particular collections program here in the Portland area. At some point, there's going to be a realistic maximum that we hit, I think, in order, in terms of our ability to carry out the program. And I would say over the last 4 or 5 years, probably 6 years or so, the number of trees we've collected each year has steadily increased, which is great, and is probably approaching that practical maximum, the exact number of which I don't know. I have some other ideas on how the program can be expanded beyond us, and we may talk about that later. But as far as our capacity goes, we're getting more and more trees, and we're loving it at the moment.
Amazing. I mean, I think it really more than suggests that people enjoy having a live tree, but definitely feel like they hope it is not just going to go in the trash somewhere. You know, I mean, it's a bit of a mixed feeling. I don't think I'm alone in that. Obviously, you're seeing a lot of people going to the effort of getting it to you. Actually, that's a question that I have is kind of practically speaking. So you promote this, and people get excited, and then they want to donate their tree. So practically, how does that work?
Sure.
They usually load it up on the top of their car and drive by.
Yeah. Well, I would say in the early years, we did a pretty good job of getting communications out, PR releases out on a number of different sources through one of our members. It didn't take very long for us not to be too worried about that, because the people who had come for a year or two liked it. They returned. They told their friends, they got on their own social networks, and the word just kept spreading. And Joel and his shop do a great job in their newsletter of putting the word out or responding to inquiries or requests, as well as other shops we work with. So we haven't had any trouble getting the word out. So we collect on 2 different Saturdays. The first 2 Saturdays in January. And the people who help us out there are volunteers from either the Clackamas chapter or the Tualatin chapter, or friends or other acquaintances. We don't have any trouble getting volunteers to collect those trees. They're collected at 2 sites. Joel had volunteered his shop parking lot for a couple of years until the volume got so overwhelming that we were able to move next door to a decommissioned, I guess I would say, fire station in West Lynn. So that's one spot. And there's another spot in Northwest Portland Northeast Portland at another fly shop. So people load their trees into the back of their rigs, or in one case, a couple brought a tree on a tandem bicycle to the Northeast shop.
Wow.
So they get their trees there to us however they can. We will load them on the following, some on Saturday, but we will remove all the trees on the 2 following Sundays to either a storage area out by Barton Park, or if we have a placement site already set up in advance, we can take the trees direct there and just stockpile them at that point. So that's kind of how the collections work.
Yeah. Oh, no, it's great. I'm still thinking about the people on the bike. That's so impressive. Did you get a picture of that? Because that would be that would have been amazing.
Had I known, I would have had my phone handy, but I didn't.
Oh, that's great. So the other thing, now that you've been doing this for a while, is have you seen the benefits to the fish? Can you talk about that a little bit? Like, what are you seeing in terms of the differences between, I'm not sure if I'm putting that well, but, let's say pre-tree installment and what you're seeing now and how it's affecting the salmon?
Sure. I don't have a lot of information on that, but I can give you kind of an overview from information I've gathered from ODF, Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife, for instance. And then I'm going to tell you a specific instance on the coast. So what we do know for sure is that when we go back to sites that we have placed in earlier years, there is a fair amount of holdover of the tree remains, if you will. Trees that we have placed and staked or secured maybe 2 or 3 years in advance, or earlier, I should say, are still there, and they're still providing the benefits that I can talk about. And in addition, groups like ODFW and I think some of the other, like Clackamas River Basin Council, some of the other interested agencies and organizations have done some follow-up evaluations. I don't have a lot of details, but we have been convinced by talking with them that what we do is not wasted effort. It is having a positive effect on the retention of and viability of those fish in our streams. So that's kind of the overview. Now, I think it was the second year that we were working in the Canicum, so this is probably 11 years ago or so, we found a portion of the river where it had kind of a bend, so we could create a corral fence, if you will, by tying tip and base of a number of Christmas trees together on a very long, very sturdy rope, and then bulging that out into the river and anchoring it at both ends, so that we created this corral into which we put probably 500 or more Christmas trees. And several of us were in there in pontoon boats, moving trees around. Many people were tossing trees on the bank, filling that void. And at the same time, there was a guy from the Rainland Flycasters, a related group in Astoria, who was a scuba diver and a filmer. And he decided, for whatever reason, he was going to go subsurface and just see what he could see. And he filmed hundreds of juvenile fry and fish gathering as those trees were being thrown in while we were still in there working. There was something about that cover and that environment that was attracting fish before we could even get out of their way. So that's just one little vignette of what seems to work about this.
Honestly, I'm tearing up. That is just, wow. That's such a beautiful story. Sorry, Joel, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that throughout history, we have taken upon ourselves to remove a lot of woody debris from rivers, which naturally occurs. I mean, trees lose branches and trees fall over and end up in the river. We've taken it upon ourselves to remove it because we think it is a obstruction to the flow of the river, when it provides natural habitat for not only fish, but the invertebrates that inhabit the river and all the way up the food chain. So by placing Christmas trees, it's just a small bit of putting what was a lot of times would naturally occur. And like Mike said, providing cover for the fry. They're always looking to get away from, danger from above. And so having a cover, the other thing too, is those branches immediately start attracting insects and eventually become a food source for all those fry too. So
I'm a little bit without words here, because what you both have just described is something so remarkable, really. I mean, in a way, as you say, Joel, it kind of makes sense, right? This was always in the water. These kinds of things were naturally occurring in the water until we start removing them. What is so really kind of astounding to me is that, knowing how skittish a fish can be as a fly fisher person, I'm really struck by the fact that they were so happy to see this cover that they decided that was more important to them than being afraid of you guys in the water with them. That is really stunning to me. Maybe not surprising to you guys, but very surprising to me.
Well, it didn't surprise me that at some point those fish would migrate. It surprised me how quickly they recognized that now was the time to migrate.
Amazing. Oh my gosh. What really, truly, I mean, what a gift, not only to the Coho salmon, but honestly, I think it's just a real gift to the community that you're doing this. Even if someone is, not necessarily interested in fish or fly fishing or, anything about that, for people to have an opportunity to get involved with conservation, to be able to do something like donate the Christmas tree that they buy. Maybe it's a small thing in a way, but it has a big impact when you start to put it all together and the work that you guys are doing. So really thank you for your efforts around this. Is there anything, this is just kind of as an aside, I mean, is there anything else that you want to talk about kind of as that's come up for you while we're talking now that you want to talk about as far as conservation or when it comes to the waterways or anything like that?
I think what's important to understand here is when you're doing a project like this in a community like ours where our shop is located, and you're bringing in people to participate that are outside of the fly fishing world, what you're doing is not only giving them a place to put their Christmas tree, but you're also educating them on a resource that they may not know much about. And so by explaining to them what you're doing and why you're doing it and the importance of it, you're also putting an importance on that resource. And so when the time comes when there are some legislative issues that may affect, the health of our local rivers and wild fish populations, those people are more apt to, pay attention and not just, slip to the next ballot measure. And so I think it's important that you, as a fly shop owner and again, as a conservationist, is to engage people that maybe wouldn't be engaged. And this is an excellent way to do it. I mean, everybody loves Christmas trees. And so this is a way that you kind of can bring that and do something with a purpose and kind of educate people as to the importance of this.
Well, listen, thank you both for your time today, for your efforts in conservation and for educating us all about even just the small decisions that we're making every day, how important those are. And certainly an awareness when it comes time to vote on certain legislative efforts or measures, it would be really helpful. And I'm sure is very helpful to people in the Portland area. I see it. I mean, this isn't probably even going to end up in the video, but I'm just saying to you candidly, as a real estate broker, I see this a lot. I hear this a lot, which is why I do this. Mike, you and I don't know each other at all. Joel and I know each other a little bit, and his wife, Jennifer, of course. And, one of the things that made me very interested in having these kinds of conversations is that my clients are making decisions every single day about landscaping, Christmas tree, like what do I do with my Christmas tree? What kind of things should I be planting? Hey, should I use that fertilizer? Is that a good idea? I'm going to redo my house. What should I be using recycled materials? It just knowing that there are options and then knowing the people who are really good resources to learn more, like you guys, are so important to our future, I think. So it just comes up a lot in my world because people are often asking me, I'm a resource pretty much for everything my clients need because I tend to have long relationships with them. So, they'll come back and ask me, hey, what do you know about this? Or do you know anybody who could do this? Or what have you heard about that?
Yeah, I think what's important to remember is that a community is bigger than you and your neighbors and your school and the gas station down the street. It's all of the things that touch the lives of the people around you, whether it's your city or your state. And with our community that we have within our fly shop, we can reach out and do a lot of common good, and this is one of those simple things that we do, and it's a lot of fun. And I'm going to speak for Mike a little bit in that the only issue faced by a lot of these volunteer organizations is that over time, he kind of leaned on a little bit about we're getting to the saturation point as far as how many trees we can handle, and because it costs money to move those trees. And so for the last few years, we've been taking donations with the trees to help facilitate the rental of trucks and things like that. But it's always, we're always looking for people that are really interested in doing some boots on the ground kind of work, and placing the trees or helping to haul the trees, or can volunteer a truck or whatever. Or if they're in another area outside of Oregon, looking at ways that they can do something similar to this in their home state. So
yeah, being in Manhattan, it's an interesting thing. People do get involved with conservation here, but it's really different than in Portland. So
well, but riparian, using Christmas trees to provide cover for salmonids is one thing, but the same types of problems are found all around the country. And maybe not Christmas trees are the answer, but in some cases they might be. So it's definitely something that has some potential, more even outside the Northwest.
We are just a laboratory test tube of this process, and I think the test has proven positive. What I've always hoped for is that other groups, there are tons of watersheds that could benefit from this. There are tons of NGOs, related organizations, even agencies that would have the capacity to create a program like this in their local waters. And I even prepared what I call a Christmas for Coho primer, about a two or so page piece on how you do it. It's not rocket science. We did get a couple of inquiries from groups up in the, particularly up in the Astoria area, who could see what we were doing and the success of what we were doing. But my wildest dream would be that we get flooded with requests for what are you doing and how can we do it? And I'd be happy to provide them with any and all information. That's on my wish list.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. So if we are, and we are able to, share information in, the links that we can post, and I know that we'll have some graphics and things like that, but if there is, if you want to have people contact you who want to know how do we do this too, just let me know what, or send me like the correct contact, and then we'll make sure it goes into the link. And
I will do that.
Great. And amazing. I mean, really, again, thank you both for what you're doing, for taking the time, for being kind of an inspiration for all of us to be thinking about what we can do to make our world a better place. And I love that you've created a model that sounds like it could fairly easily be replicated in one form or another. So thank you. All right. Well, all I can say is keep up the good work. Good luck with the tree collection and all the work that you're both doing. And to everybody watching, thank you very much for joining us. We'll be back with more conversations about conservation in the future. And
thank you.
Else.
Thank you.